presenting our work. So moving forward, the upcoming thesis is going to be presented by Manish and Nair, a postgraduate student from Birla Institute of Technology located in Ranchi, India. The title of the thesis is Managing Pluvial Floods Through Nature-Based Planning Strategies, and his design was located in Delhi, India, and was guided by Shama Parveen and Dr. Ranjan Chandra Sinha, and falls under the theme of urban landscape. I would like to call upon Manish to start sharing his screen. Hello, Manish. Hello, Manish. Are you in the meeting?
He is
Hello.
here. We can see him.
Manish, can you start sharing your screen? No, Manish, you are not audible actually.
Hello, I'm audible now.
Yeah, Manish, you are audible.
Yeah. Is the screen visible now?
Uh, yeah, it's visible, Manish. Over to
Okay.
you, Manish.
Sorry for the delay. Yeah.
No issues.
So hello everyone. I'm Manish Nair and I'm from India and PG scholar from the Architecture and Planning Department of BIT Mishra. So I'm here to present my thesis project titled Managing Pluvial Floods Through Nature-Based Planning Strategies, a case of Delhi. So firstly, I'd like to bring everyone's attention to some of the alarming facts stated by some international organizations about the vulnerability and the climate uh, change. And according to these reports, every one type of disaster has affected around 50% of the South Asia's population. And some studies also show that climate change has been increasing the occurrence of floods. Now, obviously, everyone here knows what flood is and how it occurs. So I will not be getting into the detail. But simply, there are three types of fluvial, which occurs when rivers swell, coastal, which occurs due to cyclonic storm, and fluvial floods caused due to issues related to urbanization. So this research also focuses on the last one. So globally, various events have cause economic damages when city infrastructure is hit. And some case examples of England, South Korea, and Beijing where such events have occurred. Now, even Indian cities like Bangalore, Gurgaon, and Delhi can also be set at risk, when such events are studied. Now, I wonder, I mean, why is this issue? I mean, does this happen just because of climate change or increased precipitation? No, but actually, various authors have identified, factors like decrease in infiltration capacity and increase in impervious surfaces and land use change are some of the contributing factors which increase the impacts of pluvial floods. Now, here, what can be the solution and how we can decrease such issues and how we can strengthen the existing stormwater infrastructure? The answer is nature-based planning strategies, which are inspired by nature and have certain social, economical, and environmental benefits associated to it. Now, when we consider this factor, certain Indian cities definitely come to mind, and Delhi is one of them. Now, the question now is why Delhi? There are numerous reasons. Some of it includes increased urbanization than previous flood events, and there are various other issues which will take some time to even list down. Now, Delhi's roads and certain unplanned areas have been witnessing several flooding and water stagnation from many years now. Now, the map on the right side were adapted from the Disaster Management Authority and shows the districts that are vulnerable to such events. And the map adjacent to it shows the previous flood hotspot here. Now, these factors are enough to show the risk associated. Now, to address this, I have developed a methodology to increase the resilience of areas at risk in the Baramulla Basin with certain nature-based planning strategies. The framed objective primarily focuses on identifying the areas at risk due to pluvial floods and the suitable locations for implementing and selecting those NBS strategies at two major scales. Now, the study has also focused on developing interventions that will increase the resilience of the areas and a methodology that can be used by various stakeholders simultaneously trying to reduce the issues caused by the people. Now, this is certain tools, techniques, and the methods that were followed. The first two stages are just basically the study area delineation, and the vulnerability assessment is part of analysis, and the rest are basically the part of proposal. In the third stage, the sub-watershed level, the suitable areas were identified where NBS will work efficiently. And at the fourth stage, the runoff was estimated to understand the inefficiency of the catchment to infiltrate the stormwater. And from 4 to 7 stage is part of the second proposal, which is planned for the milli-watershed level. The runoff estimation was performed to understand the inefficiency of the watershed here. And so simply if I put at first, I try to understand the problems and then develop the methodology to address the problem to new and sustainable solutions here. So coming to the results of vulnerability assessment shows that the sub-watershed, which is delineating using the flood hotspot, and when studied for the vulnerability using past flood incidences and the built-up percentages, it shows that the watershed label 9 is the most vulnerable. Hence, this might also prove that build-up is one of the factors which increases the flooding and water stagnation incidences. Now, based on the previous results, the watershed falling in the very high risk category was selected as the local action area to integrate and show how urban NBS can be integrated. Now, this action area is approximately 18,000 hectares and is part of three major catchment system of Delhi, that is the Baramulla Basin. Now, the proposal here has been developed at two scales. First, at sub-watershed level and at the milli-watershed level. So, at sub-watershed level, I focused on identifying the locations where NBS can be integrated using certain topographical and morphological indicators. So simply the suitable values of all the indicators were identified in which NBS are supposed to work efficiently, and then using count overlapping feature tool of ArcGIS. So NBS suitability map here was generated. So the areas that has the maximum number of overlaps of all these indicators were selected as the most suitable. Now, the results of the runoff estimation shows that around 30% of the stormwater stayed as pluvial flood after the initial abstraction and the amount that was managed by the existing stormwater infrastructure. Now, let's understand how one can manage this existing 30% with the help of a four-stage NBS strategy. To illustrate this point, I have developed a flowchart elaborating the conceptual design, which involves locations and the placement of urban NBAs like swales and other bioretention areas. The flowchart here explains the four stages, beginning with the primary collection, where certain stormwater ponds will be located. Then coming to conveyance and infiltrations, where NBS features like swales and other bioretention areas can be integrated. Then a secondary collection system at the lower catch, again where stormwater ponds can be integrated, and then finally disposal of the extra stormwater at the outfall point. Now, during the visual survey, the areas on the map you can see here, like certain, including roads and certain planned greens and certain underutilized areas within the right-of-way of certain major corridors, can be used for urban NBS integration. Now, various NBS features were designed and retrofitted to the existing infrastructure to the selected areas, which include roads and recreational areas like parks. A case of MB Road by using features like swales, rain gardens, and around infiltration capacity of 950 meter cube can be achieved, and a 20% of impervious surfaces can be converted to pervious surfaces. Now, water bodies were also placed, and recreational areas like parks belonging to the government were selected. Now, this will increase overall stormwater collection and the bioretention capacity of such parks too. Some images showing how it will work after retrofitting it into the existing infrastructure. Now, similarly, some other roads were also selected for exploring the possibility of urban NBS integration, as you can see in the list. Now, if you remember the results of the stormwater runoff estimation, from the extra stormwater which stayed as Pluvial flood that had come around 30% of the total runoff generated, around 65% can be managed through collection and infiltration measures, and the rest can be disposed of, or it can be managed after integrating more urban NBS too. Now, finally, an integrated network of nature-based planning strategies where urban NBS are placed based on the 4 stages of primary collection, conveyance and infiltration, secondary collection system, and then finally disposal at the major drain or nala. So now I would like to conclude by saying that impervious surfaces and build-up percentages are one of the major reasons that increases the chances and of occurring of pluvial floods, and the solution here rightfully lies in the sustainable measures like urban nature-based solution. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Manish. I would like to request upon our panel members to come up and share their words. I would like to request Gary to come forward and kindly state your questions or state your findings in 2 or 3 words since we're lagging short of time.
Manish, thank you so much for the presentation. I think it was a very detailed look into especially studies of water and watershed. There's a lot of information. How long was your thesis? How much time did it take for you to?
So it was around 1 year.
Okay. I can see there's a lot of information in there. I think this is also there's also a bad side of it because it could get a bit saturating at some point. There's a lot of numbers and a lot of information. Maybe it's just an approach. I mean, you have the freedom to present your thesis however you want, but when you present to a larger audience, it would be much beneficial if you could make it a bit more graphical and simplify the information into, for example, if you're talking about numbers, make a chart, make infographics. If you're talking about more spatial elements, for example, the last slides that you showed, they were more graphical, much easier to grasp, and it's much conveying than the big numbers and the big tables. So that's just from the presentation perspective. And from a practical perspective, for your project, how you approach. So the first step, one of the steps that you did early on in your process was looking at ArcGIS and the maps and information from the web. It's often a step that we do in the earlier process, but when you're on site after understanding or reading these maps, the situation is completely different because we are working only with one layer, which is water. But then urban system, or let's say spatial systems, are not independent systems, right? They're not in isolation. They never work in isolation because water doesn't exist as just a water body. There is a cultural layer to it. There's natural layer to it. There is transportation. There is energy. All these layers that work together. So how do these gradients really work in a flow system? So outside the urban fabric of Delhi, so there is obviously a watershed area somewhere above, right, in a higher altitude where the water starts flowing down. So that might, usually it's a rural system, but then as it gradates from that system to a more urban system, how does that transpire, and how do you think integrating your nature-based solutions in planning can affect the spatial justice, or say the spatial character of these areas? Do you think the people are going to be accepting of these? This is just my one of my big questions that I had. Another one is about temporality, which means time, how things work in time, because it's not a 1 year project, right? Because creating something at this scale takes like maybe 20 or 30 years at least to create a big planning approach to it. So have you looked at the time impact of how a project like this could affect? Because the master plan that you showed at one of the last slides was showing a bigger picture for Delhi, showing how different NBS connects and creates a more comprehensive system. But how long would it take? Where do you start? Where do you end? How does the scales work? And how do you engage people into it? And one thing that I might not completely agree with, I was a bit skeptical about this one, was the swales and the examples that you showed in the urban system of Delhi, because I understand that it might have been influenced by the European style of how bioswales work or NBSs work with open networks of water bodies within the urban system. But then in India, what mostly I've seen sadly is people start polluting these bodies when they're open, because it's also all the participants, right? It's not just as a designer us or the body that's building it, it's the citizens of the country who has to take care of it. So maybe there is an alternate desi version of this that you can integrate. So it's always the cultural fabric that you have to bring in, right? What is the Indian version of a bioswale? Do you have to cover it up? Is there a way that you can protect it? What is the kind of character that these bioswales will bring in? Are the communities open to things like this? And more than just the NBS layer of things, how does it promote a better standard of living and spatial quality within the city? How does it add on to the cultural layer of the city and the natural layer of the city? I think, again, this is not just a one-person job. I think this is kind of similar to Larissa's project in the beginning. It's a big picture thinking, and you need collaborators in this. You need architects, you need urban designers and landscape architects all to work together. So you establish a system which is a standalone water management system or an NBS system, and then you need more spatial designers and stakeholders to work together to create a more comprehensive and holistic design, which will take time to implement. But then it's a good start for informing in a pre-design stage of where we are headed, I guess.
Thank you, Gary. Ujjainji, would you like to say something?
Yes. Yeah, you picked up a very important and current problems, especially from being from Delhi, and in the recent flooding, and these are all very clear in my mind, although I was not directly affected. But I remember one comment by someone in the market saying, why so much of halla gulla? It stayed for a few days and gone. We are all fine now. And this was the biggest flooding in the city. And for a few days, it created a lot of news, a lot of disaster, of course. But then it's gone, in the sense it's not there, and everybody forgotten it, and this is happening every year. So you have really put forward a process and very detailed kind of a study methodology, and all these numbers can be done. And as Gary was saying, that it's a very big job, and it has to be done in a not only multidisciplinary and multi-layering of aspects, but also in multi-scales. I mean, many of the things can be done at the city level, as the water is kind of gathers, and then ultimately whatever has to go out, either go down or go out somewhere after doing all the menace it creates. But yeah, I think it's good work, and no doubt about that. And we are really not, I'm personally not commenting too much about how we have done, but you have done, I mean, most of your selected thesis and have certain class in it, there's no doubt about it. And the data, it's fine, but the kind of all of you are doing is in a bigger forum. It is not five of us, there's people watching all of us in YouTube and everywhere, and the issues you were all bringing out through these things is the important thing. And from that point of view, your topic and the way forwards and the methodologies you have shown at least shows people who are not involved, and there are ways of doing things, and there is hope that it can be tackled. And that's a big contribution of this kind of thesis. It's not just drawing or something, that's important because it's the academic process. You have to get a degree, you have to get marks and all that thing. Yes, fine. But these are very important topics which is being shown to people. And that way, the Urban Lab is doing a great job, It's not how great a thesis is in terms of we are commenting nice thing, but everybody is doing a very big thing because all projects are society driven. So that was nice. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Clara, would you like to comment quickly
Yes.
on his work?
So thank you, Manish, for your presentation. I looked at it in detail as well previously when assessing it. And I think there's so much information there just because it's such a big issue at the moment. I was just doing a quick research while we were just discussing this on the flood list, floodlist.com. So essentially when and how big were the latest flood events in the world? And it's just incredible. Everywhere is, suffering with this issue. So I think it's a really relevant topic that you've chosen to do your work, and that is really exciting. I think when you choose a topic of research that is, constantly feeding in the news and it's actually appearing in people's lives, your family, your friends, people in different countries, I think that has great value, and I think we have to honor that choice. That's really important. And said that, I would kind of tackle into what Gary mentioned about bringing your research to people's minds and how the big breach or distance that there is between a research as detailed as the one you've done, backed up with science and all these different things, and the real reality on site. That is, most of the cases, people, and then money, and then priorities, and then life, So I think the main thing being people. I honestly think that's the biggest kind of stopping situation in society across many different issues. So I guess my comment to you would be, okay, this is a technical solution to something, to an issue that's happening, yes, in Delhi, but in many other places. But how do we get these solutions, nature-based solutions, to be grabbed by society in different layers, in different layers of society? So how do you get politicians involved? How do you get kids involved? How do you get an old person living, in a whatever suburb in Delhi, in Santiago de Chile, in London, to engage with these issues actively? Because if these issues come from the people, there's going to be more respect to them. They are going to actually function, because all of these things require, maintenance, money, and, like Gary said, time. A solution like this would take, 15 years if we're lucky to get there. And if we manage to build them, okay, at what cost? But also, how do we get people involved to take care of this precious, infrastructure? And you were mentioning about pollution. So it's important to understand that a place like this that you've envisioned could end up being, a dumpster. That's something that is normal in Chile. The natural courses of rivers have become places where people leave trash. And how do we tackle that really social aspect? Despite all the technical things that you are very well aware of. So I think there has to be a level up and a leveling, to understand how this can be drawn back into a way that can feed into society and actually generate change in the long run. So yeah, it's essentially looking at the challenges of implementing something like this and envisioning a way to overcome